business debate on motion 3048 in the name of Jenni Minto on recognition of Dr Elsie Inglis. This debate will be concluded without any questions being put, and I would ask those members who would wish to speak in the debate to please press the request to speak buttons now, and I call on Jenni Minto to open the debate. Up to 7 minutes, please, Ms Minto.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The radiance of the legacy of Dr Elsie Maud Inglis shines across the world in women's health, in women's rights and in humanity. My motion pays tribute to this inspiring woman, surgeon, philanthropist and patriot, but also to the amazing group of women and girls, some of whom join us this evening in Parliament, who, like Elsie, did not sit still, but have worked tirelessly to ensure Edinburgh and Scotland does not forget one of its most important women. I would like to thank all of them for the amazing work they are doing, also those who have provided my colleagues and I with so many Elsie stories to prepare for this debate, and thank you too to my colleagues for supporting my motion and Minister Marie Todd for responding on behalf of the Scottish Government. It may seem odd that I, representing Argyll and Bute, am leading this members' debate to honour and recognise the achievements of Dr Elsie Inglis with a statue in Edinburgh. But Scotland is a village, and as I've said, Elsie's influence reaches far and wide, even to the beaches of Islay. It was a chance meeting with Thea Laurie on Kilchoman Beach that I was drawn into this important project to remember Dr Elsie Inglis. Of course.
Alex Cole-Hamilton.
I'm very grateful indeed for Jenni Minto giving way. Does she recognise that Elsie Inglis is recognised and commemorated in Serbia and in France, but it's high time that we had her commemorated here in our nation's capital?
Jenni Minto.
I absolutely agree with the member and would like to note that in St Andrews, where both he and I were educated, Elsie Inglis' portrait was etched on the beach as part of Scotland's World War 100 commemorations. In Thea's words, Elsie's inspirational story is not just set on the battlefields of World War I. Her battles included the fight to become a doctor and surgeon. She fought for votes for women and helped establish the Scottish suffrage movement. But the philanthropic side of Elsie was her concern for the women and children from the poorest parts of Edinburgh, for whom she set up a hospital on the High Street. It's now time for Edinburgh to say thank you to Elsie Inglis. As part of Scotland's World War 100 commemorations, I attended on the 29th of November 2017 a service at St Giles, marking 100 years since Elsie's funeral. It was a celebration of her life. St Giles filled with the joyous Hallelujah chorus, as it had a century previously, a thanksgiving with triumph and hope. But to begin at the beginning, Elsie was born in the Himalayas of India in 1894. Her father, John Inglis, worked for the East India Company, but when he disagreed with the ruthless way the company was run, he lost his post and the family returned to Edinburgh. Elsie finished her schooling in the city and then in Paris, all the time determined to become a doctor, supported to achieve her ambition by her progressive father. After qualifying at both the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in Edinburgh and the Faculty of Physicians and Surgeons in Glasgow, she worked in women's hospitals in London and Dublin. When her beloved father was dying, she returned home to Edinburgh to nurse him, later acknowledging that whatever I am, whatever I have done, I owe it all to my father. Her deep concern for the way the medical services treated women led her to establish hospitals and maternity facilities for Edinburgh's poor. But Elsie also recognised that the only way women would gain true equality was through the vote, and tirelessly campaigned for votes for women. Elsie was 50 when World War I broke out. She knew that women could play an important role. She inquired at the War Office if doctors and surgeons would be permitted to serve in the front-line hospitals, women doctors. It was then the infamous words were uttered to her, "My good lady, go home and sit still." Elsie went home, but sit still she did not. Instead, she offered all female units to the Belgians, the French and the Serbs, who all gladly accepted. Elsie formed the Scottish Women's Hospitals along with her friends in the suffrage movement, starting a massive fundraising campaign that was to run throughout the war. Writing to Millicent Fawcett, Elsie said, We get these expert women, doctors, nurses and ambulance workers organised. We send our units wherever they are wanted. Once these units are out, the work is bound to grow. The need is there, and too terrible to allow any haggling about who does the work. Elsie finished her letter, and when one hears of the awful need, one can hardly sit still till they are ready. So individuals, communities, companies and countries all contributed beds, blankets, tents, ambulances, surgical equipment and X-ray machines, everything that a field hospital required. When women came back from serving in one of the hospitals on the front, they often went on to help raise more money by giving talks about the important work that they and their fellow women were doing. Women like Mary Struthers Drummond and Miss Lang Anderson from Appin, Nurse Green and Nurse Mary Ritchie Thompson from Tobermory, just 4 of the many women from Argyll and Bute. I know members across this chamber will be able to share the names of more of these compassionate and brave women who joined the Scottish Women's Hospitals or nursed at the front. Elsie Inglis was not content to manage the hospitals from afar. She wanted to be in the thick of things. She travelled extensively across Europe from 1914 to 17, visiting hospitals. But it was in Serbia that Elsie extended her main effort, and where she served both in the operating theatre and in directing improvements in general treatment. She wrote, "The Serbian division is superb. We are proud to be attached to it." I will read from one of Elsie's letters included in the book Dr Elsie Inglis by Lady Frances Barber. And this letter was written in January 1917 to her niece Amy McLaren. "I don't think the children in these parts are doing many lessons during the war, and that will be a great handicap for their countries afterwards. Perhaps, however, they are learning other lessons. We saw the crowds of refugees on their carts and the things they had been able to save, and all the little children packed in among the furniture and pots and pans and pigs." This letter was written on an ambulance train near Odessa 105 years ago. Sadly, these words are mirrored by journalists today. On Sunday night, Channel 4 News showed a maternity ward in Kyiv. In the basement lay a Ukrainian mother with her newborn daughter. The father liked the name Victoria, or Victory, the mother, Nadia, hope. I was struck by the similarity of this scene to those that Elsie and other women must have experienced in Edinburgh and Serbia over 100 years ago. Seeing the horror of war unfolding again, but also the outpouring of aid and support for the people of Ukraine, I found myself thinking, wondering what Elsie would have said. There is a story that after Elsie Inglis visited her first field hospital in France, she went to the Cathedral of Notre Dame. She suddenly felt as if there was a living presence behind her. She turned and realised she'd been sitting just in front of the statue of Joan of Arc. Afterwards, she commented, "I should like to know what Joan wanted to say to me." Elsie Inglis is a living presence who deserves this recognition. Presiding Officer, I will finish by congratulating again the work that the team in the public galleries are doing to ensure we never forget what Dr Elsie Inglis achieved. I hope they too will be able to stand beside Elsie's statue, feel her warmth.
Ms Minto, could you please conclude? Thank you.
Feel her warmth and wonder what Elsie should want them to say to them. I'll sign off with the beautiful words penned by Scottish poet Gerda Stevenson for the commemoration service in 2017.
Ms Minto, we really are quite over your time. Could you please conclude? Thank you very much. Thank you.
In sun and moonlight flash of
Ms Minto,
gunfire.
thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I now call